Venerable Sangye Khadro. Thank you. It's wonderful to welcome you here at the Maitreya Instituut. And also welcome to everyone here in the Gompa, everyone online. I'm not sure, can you see me? Yeah, I think so. So yeah, we're very honored to finally host you over here. I wasn't quite sure whether you had been here before. It was saying probably around 2016.
I don't remember. I've been here before, definitely. Yeah, several times.
So Venerable is a student of Maitreya, his own is the Dalai Lama, and several other teachers. Was ordained in 1974. I was 4 years old. So I think it's such a privilege to host you here as a long-term Dharma practitioner and teacher, having been director of several centers, including
No, not a director. No, I've never been a well, Dorje Pomo, yeah, Dorje Pomo Nunnery director, but not otherwise I've been a teacher.
Yes, and then also, of course, you wrote several books, and I think one of the first books that I myself wrote was How to Meditate by Kathleen MacDonald, who is actually the Sangye Khadro. I think so many of us know this book. And recently, a new book was published, How to Meditate on the Graduated Path to Enlightenment, which actually I've been using quite a bit when preparing some meditation. So wonderful! It's a really wonderful guide. Venerable Sangye Khadro is actually living in Sravasti Abbey in the USA, where one of our students, one of our Dutch students, Venerable Palmo, recently went as well to live. So it's very nice to have this connection. So thank you so much. We're looking forward to an inspiring evening, I think.
Thank you.
And that's enough for us.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Oh, yeah, I'm very happy to be back in Holland again. I can't remember when the last time I was here, but it was probably 2016 or 17. It's been 8 or 9 years. Can you hear me okay? Sound is okay? Is it, huh? Is it, is there a speaker?
No, it was just the image was in there.
Oh, my image. Oh, okay. Now it's okay. Okay. But can everyone hear me okay? Yes. Sometimes I speak softly, so if I go soft, then remind me to speak louder. Yeah, so I have come many times to Holland. I think the first time I came was maybe 1979, 1980, really at the beginning of Maitreya Instituut. And so it's wonderful to see how it has grown and developed and benefited many people. So tonight, I was asked to give a talk about my new book, which is called How to Meditate on the Stages of the Path. And it's kind of a sequel. No, I don't know if that's the right word. But How to Meditate was quite well received, quite popular, but it's more of an introductory book. And so this goes further into the actual Lamrim, or the stages of the path to enlightenment, and how to meditate on all the different topics, or as many of the different topics in the Lamrim. So it's a little bit more advanced than how to meditate. But anyway, I'll talk about it tonight. And but I thought that to begin with, it would be nice to do a little bit of meditation to settle down. Maybe some of you had a busy day. You're working or doing various activities, and Now we're at the end of the day, but you might be feeling still a little bit preoccupied with things that you did during the day. So it's good to take a few minutes to just let our minds and our bodies settle down so that we can be as attentive as possible for this class. So if you can, sit up straight. Try to have your back straight. But let your body relax. So if you notice any tension anywhere in your body, maybe in your back or your shoulders, neck, or any place where you notice tension, see if you can let go of the tension, let it kind of melt and flow out of you. You can imagine it going into the earth and disappearing there, or evaporating in space. Or just imagine it leaving you, going out of you and disappearing. And if your mind is still somewhat busy thinking about things that you did during the day, or thinking about the future, what you're going to do tonight or tomorrow. So if you do have any thoughts like that of the past or the future, put those aside for now and just let your mind be in the present place and present moment, right here, right now. And it can be difficult to do that. So a somewhat helpful way to be in the present is to pay attention to the breath. Be aware of the breath coming in and going out. Now just let your breathing be natural. Let your body breathe in a natural way. And just with your mind, with your awareness, lightly observe the breath as it's coming in and going out. Now let's take a few more minutes to generate a positive motivation or intention as to our reason for being here. The Tibetan Lamas say that our motivation for the things we do is very important. It determines the outcome, the results of the things we do. So if we want good results, it's important to have a good motivation. We do things with have a negative motivation, like wanting to hurt others, or a selfish motivation, just thinking of ourselves, then that's not so good. It won't bring good results. So the best motivation that we can have is altruism, meaning caring about others, wanting to benefit others. The highest level of that is bodhicitta, wanting to become a Buddha, fully enlightened, so that we can help others in the best possible way. So if you're familiar with that motivation and comfortable with it, then you can bring that into your mind as your reason for being here tonight. If you're not familiar with bodhicitta, then you can think of whatever kind of motivation would be beneficial, something you can relate to, you feel comfortable with. For example, just to think, I would like to help others as much as I can. I would like to help the world. So I would like to learn something here tonight that will help me to help others, to be more helpful to others. So something like that. You can use your own thoughts, your own words, but try your best to feel that you're here not just for yourself, but so that you can benefit others as well. Mhm. So I'd love to start by just talking a little bit about how I got involved in Buddhism and came to write this book. Um, so I grew up in California, and my family is not Buddhist. Um, they're Catholic, so I was raised in the Catholic environment. Went to Catholic school. We went to Catholic church. So my father was quite religious and wanted his children to also be religious. And I remember probably when I was still in elementary school, primary school, I started having questions, doubts, things about the Catholic teachings just didn't make sense to me. And when I asked questions, the answers weren't always satisfying. So I started having more and more doubts about it. And by the time I was in my early teens, I already felt that I can't do this. This isn't for me. I can't be a Catholic. But I was still very interested in kind of the big questions of life, like why are we here? And what happens after we die? And is there some sort of higher power or not? And in those days, this is, yeah, in the 60s and early 70s, there weren't many Buddhist books available. Now it's like there's thousands of Buddhist books. But back then, there were only a few. But yeah, in my teens, I did encounter some some books about not just Buddhism, but Eastern religions, religions of India and the Far East. And I just felt somehow very drawn, very attracted to some of the things they were saying. By the time I was in my late teens in university, I was feeling more and more drawn to India, particularly because that seemed to be a place where there were a lot of spiritual teachers and spiritual teachings. And so I decided to just go. I think my parents were kind of worried about me taking off on my own. But in those days, there were a lot of young people traveling, as probably now as well. And so you meet other young people and you spend time with them and so on. So initially I came to Europe, traveled through Europe and then North Africa, but eventually I went to India because that was my main kind of destination. And the first place I went was Dharamsala in northwest India, where the Dalai Lama lives. I heard that he was living there. Because back in those days, there was no Lonely Planet guide, no internet. You would just find out about places to go and things to do from other travelers. So yeah, I heard that the Dalai Lama was in Dharamsala, and I immediately said, that's where I'm going. I'm going there. I had an interest in Tibet and the Dalai Lama, again, since my teens. So I arrived in Dharamsala and felt very comfortable seeing monks walking around with these kind of clothes on. And I just felt, I want to stay here. I started going to classes at the Tibetan library, learning Buddhism, and was very drawn, very, attracted and wanted to learn more, wanted to practice more. So that was the beginnings of my learning of Buddhism. And then the following year, I went to Nepal and stayed at Kopan Monastery. And that's where I got ordained. I became a nun quite quickly. I really jumped in quickly, decided this is what I want to do. So I became a nun. And then I stayed at Kopan for the next couple of years, attending meditation courses by Lama Zopa Rinpoche and Lama Yeshe, and learning the Lamrim. So that was the main topic of the meditation courses, Lamrim. So Lamrim means graduated path, or also you could call it stages of the path. So the Lamrim is a very important part of our tradition, the Gelugpa tradition of Tibetan Buddhism, the same tradition of His Holiness the Dalai Lama. And it developed in Tibet starting, well, I won't tell the whole story, but basically the idea is the Buddha taught for 45 years after he attained enlightenment. And Buddhist scriptures are quite vast. I don't know if you have this set here of the Kangyur and the Tangyur, no. But yeah, if you look at all the scriptures taught by the Buddha, there's stacks and stacks of these scriptures. He taught a lot. And and to try to understand all of those scriptures would be very difficult, partly because a lot of them aren't even translated into English, so we can't even read them. That's happening now. There's a wonderful project that's translating all the words of the Buddha into English. It's called 84,000, and they have a website, and you can go there and download for free these wonderful translations of Buddha's teachings. But even if you could read all the Buddha's teachings, it could be difficult for you to figure out how to practice them. Because when the Buddha was alive and teaching, he would travel and move around and would meet people, and people would ask him questions. They would ask for teaching. So he would give teachings according to whoever was in front of him, according to that person's needs. And so, so if you just read all the scriptures of the Buddha, it might be a little hard to figure out, well, how do I use this material? How do I make sense of it? How do I practice it? So, so over the course of centuries in India, as the Buddha's teachings were passed down, some of the great masters started to organize the Buddha's teachings in a sort of structured way. And that's what eventually became the Lamrim. And it really took off in Tibet, starting in about the 9th, 10th century with Lama Atisha, the Indian master who came to Tibet and taught in Tibet. And he wrote the very first Lamrim text called The Lamp of the Path to Enlightenment. And it's a relatively short text, but it sort of lays out in a step-by-step way what you need to do to follow the Buddhist teachings and reach the goal, which is enlightenment, awakening. And then over the centuries, other Tibetan masters elaborated on this kind of genre of teachings. And so there's a number of different texts of the Lamrim. Probably the largest one is by Lama Tsongkhapa. It's called the Lamrim Chenmo, the great exposition of the stages of the path. Very elaborate, detailed. But in general, Lamrim takes the main points of the Buddhist teachings and arranges them in a sort of step-by-step way that shows us what we need to do to get from where we are now as ordinary unenlightened beings to the state of enlightenment, the state that the Buddha achieved. Because according to Buddhism, everyone has the ability, the potential to reach enlightenment. It's like our real nature, our real home, where we belong. And we just don't know how to get there. We just don't know how to attain that state. So the Buddha's teachings show us how to attain that state of awakening. And so the Lamrim has, sort of taken the main points of the Buddha's teachings and arranged them in this step-by-step way. It's a bit like Google Maps. If you want to get from one point to another, you want to get from here, Amsterdam, to Paris. Let's say you want to drive to Paris. Is that possible? Yeah. Okay. Yeah. But you got to make sure you have a map. You know where you're going. Or now we have GPS, but before GPS, you would have a map. It would sort of tell you step by step. First, you go here, then you go there, then you take this exit, and da 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 da. So it's a sort of gradual step by step map to get from point A to point B. So in a similar way, the Lamrim is a sort of step by step guide to get from where we are now, unenlightened, to the goal of enlightenment. If that's what you want, of course, you don't have to reach enlightenment if you don't want to. But if you do, if you see the benefit of doing that, then the Lamrim is ideal for that. So I've had the chance to study with quite a few different wonderful Tibetan masters, and receive different kinds of teachings. And but for me personally, and I think for many other Western people, the Lamrim is really something very precious and very practical, very useful. Because if you know the Lamrim, you know this path, what you need to do to get to enlightenment, then any other teachings you might learn or encounter, you know where they fit in. Yeah, you can kind of figure out how they fit into the overall path to enlightenment, which is very helpful. Because otherwise, if you're just going to different teachings and reading different books, and Buddhism is really vast, and there's also so many different traditions of Buddhism. And so if you're just going to a lot of different sources of information, then it can be confusing. Probably many people find themselves confused in the beginning and wonder, what do I do with all this information? How do I make sense of it? How do I practice it? I think we're all looking for answers and for help for our everyday problems. And so, yeah, the Lamrim just sort of helps you understand how everything fits in. Although, strictly speaking, it does take time to learn the Lamrim. And usually there's a process. The ideal process is that you first listen to teachings on the Lamrim. So it's good if you have the chance to listen to a teacher who has studied the Lamrim and is giving teachings on it. And I think even if there isn't such a teacher and a course available where you live, nowadays with the internet, there are many opportunities to do courses, online courses, and at home, like, what do they call it? Study at home courses, home study courses. Yeah. So I know the FPMT offers some of those courses, and other centers do as well. So it's good to learn the Lamrim from a qualified teacher, a reliable teacher, and supplement what you hear from the teacher with reading. So there's books that you can read, other materials you can read, so that you gradually get an understanding of what the Lamrim is all about. And the material in the Lamrim isn't meant just for intellectual knowledge. It's not like learning a language or learning a science, where you just have to memorize this material and store it in your brain. But the real purpose of the Lamrim is to contemplate the different topics. There's like a series of different topics you go through. So meditate on them, contemplate them. And by doing that, you gradually bring about a change in your way of thinking, in your way of being, your way of living your life. And that won't happen just with one meditation. You need to do a number of sessions of meditation on each topic. And so just to give an example, one of the very first topics in the Lamrim is called the precious human life, preciousness of the human life. Sometimes it's called perfect human rebirth, but I think I prefer precious human life. I'm not sure what I call it in here. A precious human life, yeah. And so, so the basic idea there is that as we are human beings now, obviously, but we're really fortunate to have a human life. Not everyone in the world and not everyone in the universe has a precious human life. Like there's a lot of other kinds of beings, like animals and fish and birds and so on. And also even among human beings, not all human beings have a precious human life. So precious human life, just to summarize it, it's a life where you have the most ideal conditions to learn the Dharma, meaning the spiritual teachings, particularly the path to enlightenment. So you have the chance to learn the Dharma and practice the Dharma. So that's sort of the essential idea of the precious human life. And so some of those conditions would be physical, like having, being physically healthy, physically fit. Also mentally, your brain needs to work properly so that you can listen and understand the teachings and make use of them. So being physically and mentally fit and able to understand the teachings. But other qualities would be having interest. Like a lot of people are physically and mentally healthy, but they're not interested. I'm sure family, some of your family members and friends, if you suggested that they come and listen to a Buddhist talk or come to a Buddhist course, would go like, what? It's just not for them. So this is a situation a lot of people have. They are simply not interested. They don't have that connection with the Dharma that sparks, that they get sparked when they have the opportunity to learn it. And having freedom as well. Freedom to choose your lifestyle, because that's a situation a lot of people don't have. Some people don't have control over their lives. Their lives are controlled by others. Maybe not so much in this country, but in some parts of the world. People just don't have freedom, especially women. Women are often under the control of men who don't let them do what they want. And but also in some countries, the government has really strict control over people, their lives, their information, and so on. So if you were born in a country like that, I'm thinking of North Korea, for example. Yeah, even if you wanted to learn about the path of enlightenment, you probably have no opportunity to do that. So having freedom and independence and control over our lives, so that we can choose to take up spiritual practice, engage in spiritual practice, study and practice, and follow the Dharma. So there's just some of the qualities, the conditions that make up the precious human life. Another one is having enough resources, because if you are impoverished, homeless, struggling just to keep yourself alive, and maybe your family members as well, you have almost zero time to give to coming to a talk like this, or attending a meditation class. So I'm sure everyone here has enough to eat. We have a roof over our head. We have clothes to wear. We have the basic necessities of life that allow us time and leisure, freedom to pursue a spiritual practice. So those are just some of the characteristics or qualities of a precious human life. So the idea is, if we have such a life, then it's precious because we can learn the Dharma, the spiritual path, and we can practice it, and we can at least start going in the direction of enlightenment, awakening, that we have the potential to attain. And so the Buddha himself, there's one sutra where the Buddha was speaking with some of his disciples, and he sort of described this analogy. He said, imagine the whole world was covered with a great big ocean, and there's a tortoise or a turtle living on the bottom of the ocean. And once every 100 years, this tortoise gets to come up to the surface of the ocean and stick its head above the water. And it's blind. That's another factor. It can't see. And on the surface of the ocean, there's like a yoke, or like a ring, golden ring. And it's always in a different place, moving here and there with the wind and the tides and so on. So it's never in the same place. So he asks his followers, so what are the chances of this tortoise, when it's coming up to the surface, putting its head through that golden ring? And the disciples said, oh, not likely. That's very unlikely that would happen. And then the Buddha said, yeah, in the same way, it's actually very difficult to have a human life, and difficult to meet the teachings of the Dharma that show the path to enlightenment. And now you have both of these situations, so don't waste your time. I'm paraphrasing the story, but that's the gist of it. So that's kind of the origin of this idea of a precious human life. You know, if we have all these conditions, a human life, healthy body, mind, freedom, resources, and so on, and we have the chance to learn the teachings, then we are in a really fortunate situation. It's also rare compared with the vast number of other beings, including other human beings. And so, so the idea of meditating on this topic is to feel a sense of joy and gratitude and appreciation for the opportunities that we have, and then make use of that. You know, like, life is not meaningless and hopeless. You can do a lot. So, you know, do it. And for me personally, that topic, I mean, I did struggle in the beginning. You know, it often takes a while to, you know, wrap your mind around some of these ideas. But it was really helpful because I'd been quite unhappy most of my life, and even suicidal sometimes. And I'm glad I didn't do that. I didn't take that route. But yeah, it was, you know, the world didn't seem like a great place, and life didn't seem that great. So sometimes I really wondered if I wanted to stay around. And so this topic of the precious human life really helped me to totally change that point of view and see that, yes, I'm really fortunate what I have, the opportunities that I have, and I really do want to make good use of this life. And so I think it probably helps a lot of people to see their life, their potential, their ability in a different way, and then put their energy into things that are beneficial, not just practicing Dharma, but also helping others. You know, there's so many good things we can do. We have this body, this mind, we're healthy and relatively comfortable, better off than many other people in the world. And there's so many people and beings in need of help. And so to appreciate the opportunities that one has, and then, you know, put your energy into helping others as much as possible. So even if the idea of attaining enlightenment might seem a little far away, or you're not really sure if that's what you want to do, but there's lots of other things you can do with your life that are beneficial for others and also beneficial for yourself. Because when you're helping others, you're doing things for others, you feel good too. You benefit as well. So yeah, that was one of the topics that was really helpful for me, and and continues to be helpful when I think about it. So yeah, contemplating the preciousness of our human life really gives energy, motivation to use our life well and wisely and in beneficial ways. So you know, like the real purpose, the ultimate purpose of all the topics in the Lamrim is to guide us to enlightenment, Buddhahood. But that's a long-term project. Yeah, I mean, they say we all have the potential to reach enlightenment. In the beginning, I have to say, and I think some of my fellow students at that time were of the same mind, that, you know, sometimes the lamas say that you can reach enlightenment in one lifetime. And I thought, oh yeah, that's what I'm going to do. Just this lifetime, I'm going to get to enlightenment. I was pretty young in those days and naive. But realistically, it takes more than one lifetime. And I've heard the Dalai Lama say that even though there are cases of people who went all the way to enlightenment in one lifetime, like Milarepa is an example. But they're rare. He said 1 in a million, or maybe 1 in 2 million. Not completely clear. But anyway, it's not like everybody. That's certainly not everybody who can do that. And his recommendation, his advice is not kind of be in such a hurry to get to enlightenment. Like, I have to do it this lifetime, but rather think long term. Like, it might take many lifetimes, and that's okay. You know, just to think that is my goal, and I'm going to keep going in that direction, keep working on that, even if it takes a number of lifetimes. So he says that's how he himself thinks about it, and he recommends that others think that way as well. So hearing that from the Dalai Lama, who I have incredible respect for, helped me to sort of relax and take it easy. Yeah, I'll just keep going in that direction, keep creating the causes, and eventually it'll happen. I'll get there. But anyway, so the Lamrim then consists of like a series of different topics that are to be learned about, listening to teachings, reading books, and thinking about them. And it's also helpful to do it in a group situation where you have other people that you can discuss with. So, for example, at Kopan Monastery, it's kind of the home monastery for the FPMT, this organization that this center is part of. It's in Nepal, and every year they have a 1-month course. Usually now, I think there's one going on right now. It's always in November, and it's really like a retreat. People stay there, and they have a daily schedule starting with morning meditation, and there's lectures and more meditation, discussions, more meditation. So all day long is a program consisting of meditations, talks, discussions, question and answer. And the main topic is the Lamrim. So the teacher will go through the Lamrim and might be able to get through the whole Lamrim, at least in a brief way. And so that's, for many people, that is a really good way to learn the Lamrim, because you're kind of in an intense situation. You're not having to go to work and travel around, and you probably can't use your phone there. You don't have so many distractions, and you can just focus on learning the Lamrim. So that's for many people, that is a situation where they initially learn the Lamrim. And I know people who keep going back every year, again and again, because once isn't enough. You usually need to hear it a number of times to really understand it. And each time you listen to or read a Lamrim book, you gain new insights, new ideas, new understanding that you didn't have before. So it's really, really rich, quite rich. In fact, I once heard the Dalai Lama say, with respect to this big Lamrim, I was talking about the Lamrim Chenmo by Lama Tsongkhapa. I don't know if there's a translation in Dutch, but the English, probably most people read it in English. It's like 3 volumes. 3 thick volumes. So there's a lot of material there. And I once heard the Dalai Lama say that he has read it 75 times. And that was already many years ago. So by now, maybe it's 100 times. But I thought, wow, I mean, how many of us read a book more than once even, right? We usually read a book once and then we think, I know that book, I don't need to read it again. But to read a book 10 times, 20 times, but 75 times, that's pretty amazing. But I think it is because, you're reminding yourself of this amazing material. And each time you do, you might get some new insights, some new understandings that you didn't have before. And it also deepens whatever insights and understandings you did have before. But it certainly doesn't hurt to review that the material again and again. Yeah, so anyway, there's like a series of topics, and in a very broad way, they're divided into 3 sections called sometimes they're called 3 scopes or 3 levels. And so they are the topics to learn about and meditate on according to where you're at in your spiritual practice, your spiritual development. So the first level, which is sometimes called the small scope, but that can sound a little like derogatory, a little demeaning. So another possible translation is initial scope. That sounds more neutral. So the initial scope, this is for people who are kind of in the first stages of their learning about the Dharma, and so it consists of what they need to know, what they need to do, what they need to practice, kind of, when you're at that level, beginnings of your Dharma practice. And just to summarize, there's quite a bit of material in there, but to summarize, we need to realize that even though we do have precious human life, this life we have is really precious because we can do so much good with it, but it's not going to last forever. So after the topic of the precious human life is the topic of impermanence and death, where we meditate on how, our body is changing all the time, our mind is changing all the time, the things in the world around us are changing. This is just their nature. It's impermanence. Impermanence means change, subject to change. So all of these things are changing all the time. And like in our own case, that means we are getting older all the time. Our body's getting older. Our mind is also changing as we get older. It can become less sharp and clear and more forgetful and so on. And then sooner or later, at some point in time, we're going to die. Every single one of us is going to die. And we know that. We all know that. But most of us try to push that aside. We don't really want to think about that. We go on living as if we're going to live forever. But the Buddha said, no, that's not a good idea, because you're not going to live forever. It's important to accept that you're going to die and be ready for it when it happens. Otherwise, it comes as a big shock. You won't be able to manage it very well. So, so there's the meditation on impermanence and death. And the real point of that is so that we prepare ourselves for death. We will be ready for death when it happens. And from the Buddhist point of view, being ready for death doesn't mean only, being peaceful, knowing how to be peaceful at the time of death, but because according to Buddhism, as you probably know, death isn't like an end to everything. It's more like a gateway into another life. Our mind, our consciousness doesn't cease, doesn't stop when our body dies. It continues, and it will take another life, another rebirth. I know that's a topic that is difficult for a lot of Western people, but it's very much the Buddhist teachings, very much part of the Buddhist worldview and practice and so on. So anyway, and the Lamrim is based on that. So it's the topic of rebirth or reincarnation is there all the way through the Lamrim. You can't avoid it. So, okay, let's just say it's true. Put aside doubts for now, and let's say it's true. We're going to have another life after this one. Well, what kind of life are we going to have? And do we get to choose? Yeah? Some people have that idea. They believe in rebirth, but they think we get to choose where we're going to be born. Well, I don't know. I always had trouble with that idea, because if you look at some of the places people are born, yeah, some of the situations people are born into, they are horrific. Why would anyone want to choose Gaza, right? Like, why would anyone want to choose to be born in Gaza? um, or into a family where there's drug abuse, there's sexual abuse, physical abuse. Kids right from the beginning of their life are being abused, and you know, having that kind of life, I mean, having that kind of start to your life means, yeah, your life probably won't go very well. You'll have a lot of problems. So why would anyone choose such a life? So that was a doubt that I had. But anyway, according to Buddhism, we don't choose. Rather, it's our karma. Where we are born, the kind of circumstance we're born into is the result of our karma. So we, through our karma, our actions, we are creating causes for our next life, the situation we're born in, experiences we have, and so on. And yes, there are terrible places to be born, situations to be born in. And if we look at those and we say, no, I don't want to be born there, I want to avoid that, I want to have a good situation, especially, ideally, we want to have another human life like we have now, with the opportunity to continue practicing Dharma so we can keep going towards enlightenment and not just, have a good time, but continue our spiritual practice towards enlightenment. So if we want that kind of a life, then we have to create the causes for that. And that mainly means good karma, virtue. And so the Buddha gave guidelines on, like, what is good karma, what is bad karma. So killing and stealing and so on are bad karma. We avoid those. Being generous and helping others is good karma. So we want to create more of that. So karma is a really major topic in this first section of the Lamrim, learning all about karma, so that we can live our life wisely, avoiding negative karma, non-virtuous karma, creating good karma, so that, in the future, and not just next life, but even in this life, the kind of karma we're creating now will also affect this life, experiences we have in this life. So if we want good experiences and want to avoid bad experiences, then it's really up to us and the karma we create. So that's kind of the main topic in the initial scope. So in the summary, the initial scope is all about just sort of realizing that the life we have now isn't going to last forever. We need to think about our future and act wisely and skillfully to ensure that our future experiences will be what we want, good experiences, and not bad experiences that we don't want. And then the second main scope or level of the Lamrim is called the intermediate scope or the middling scope. And there, what you meditate on, it mainly it's the Four Noble Truths, the first topic that the Buddha taught, the Four Noble Truths, that the existence of suffering, first noble truth, that there's suffering, there are problems, there's unhappy, unpleasant experiences wherever we are born. As long as we're unenlightened beings and we're still taking rebirth, then even if we're born in a good situation, like human being, even if you're born, in the family of a billionaire or a celebrity, you have a really wonderful life, everything you could possibly want, but there's still suffering. You still have a body that gets sick and gets old and eventually dies. And you have problems with other people. You don't get along with everybody. Not everybody likes you. So there's always some problems in life wherever we are born, as long as we're unenlightened, as long as we're in what's called samsara. Samsara is the term used for unenlightened existence, where we keep dying and being reborn again and again and again. So as long as we're in that situation, then we will experience suffering or unwanted, unsatisfactory experiences So we meditate on that in order to generate the wish to be free, get ourselves out of this situation of samsara. And then we need to look at the causes of suffering. What is it that keeps us in this situation? Why are we stuck here? Why can't we get out? And the Buddha pointed out that there's two main causes of samsara. One is afflictions or delusions, like greed, hatred, ignorance, jealousy, these negative aspects of our mind that disturb our mind and also motivate our actions so that we harm others, harm ourselves, and so on. So afflicted states of mind, negative states of mind is one of the main causes, and the other is karma. Karma that we do under the influence of these afflictions. So those are the causes of suffering, second noble truth. And then the third noble truth is cessation of suffering, meaning it is possible to be free of this situation. It's not something that's going to last forever and there's no escape. There is an escape. There is a way out. And that is to eliminate the causes of suffering, eliminate the afflictive states of mind and karma. So just that possibility, it's doable. The Buddha did it. Others have done it. We can do it too. And the fourth noble truth is the path, how to do that, how to get out. And that's mainly explained in, there's different ways of explaining the path, but one is in terms of we're called three higher trainings: ethics, living ethically; concentration, developing our ability to stay concentrated on whatever object we choose, as long as we want; and then wisdom, understanding the true nature of things, how we exist, how others exist, how the world exists, how everything exists. So wisdom, and that's really the main thing. That's like the key to getting free of samsara and suffering, is developing that wisdom. So those are the main topics in the second or middling scope of the Lamrim. And the purpose of meditating on those is to understand what we need to do in order to get out, to attain freedom, liberation, nirvana, and that's the main idea there. And then the third main level of the Lamrim is called the Great Scope, and this is where we find the Bodhisattva's path, the path of the Bodhisattva. So a Bodhisattva is someone who doesn't only want to liberate themselves from suffering, from samsara, but they want to help everybody else get out as well. So they have a really broad mind, a really vast mind, a vast vision of wanting to help all living beings, without exception, become free of suffering and the causes of suffering. And so in that section of the Lamrim, you find the meditations for developing that aspiration, which is called bodhicitta, the aspiration to become a Buddha, to help all living beings. So how do you cultivate that state of mind? And involves developing love, universal compassion for all living beings. So it's really, really beautiful, beautiful meditations in that section of the Lamrim. And then after developing bodhicitta, after developing this determination, I'm going to become a Buddha to help all living beings, then you have the 6 perfections, which are the main practices a bodhisattva does to reach enlightenment. So it's giving, ethics, patience, joyous effort, concentration, and wisdom. So those are the main practices a bodhisattva does to actually reach their goal of enlightenment for the benefit of all living beings. So there's really, really beautiful material in that section of the Lamrim. And So that's just a brief overview of what's included in the Lamrim. And the audience, the what do you call it? The designated audience, or the target audience, yeah. Who the Lamrim was intended for, written for, are those who aspire to be bodhisattvas and eventually reach enlightenment. And the other parts of the Lamrim, like the first part and the second part, the initial and the middle and the scope, even though those aren't the ultimate goal for a bodhisattva, but a bodhisattva or someone aspiring for enlightenment still has to learn about those topics and meditate on them. Yeah. So one analogy to the Lamrim is like, say, a multi-story building, and you want to reach the top floor. You can't just immediately jump to the top floor. You have to go up the stairs. If there's no elevator, you have to go up the stairs. So you have to go step by step from one floor to the next floor, and so on and so on. And so all the different sections of the Lamrim, starting with the precious human life and so on, these are all like steps to bring you to the bodhisattva's path, and then eventually to full enlightenment, Buddhahood. So even if your goal is full enlightenment, you still have to go through those other stages. They're important for your own practice, your own development, but also when it comes to helping others. Like, you have to know about karma. If you want to help others, you have to be able to teach them karma so that they know what is the bad karma to be avoided, what is the good karma to be practiced, to be engaged in. The bodhisattva still needs to know all of those stages. The work for others to be most effective. So that's just an overview of the Lamrim. And as I mentioned, it isn't just to be learned intellectually, like gaining knowledge, but it's really meant to be meditated on, brought into our mind, brought into our life, so that we live our life in accordance with these teachings. And it said that, and to be able to do that, we need to meditate. We need to meditate on these topics of the Lamrim. And so that's how this book came about, because, well, it wasn't really my idea to write this book. It was somebody else's idea. So some years ago, I lived in Italy, and I was following the master's program. This is a program within the FPMT where we study like some of the philosophical scriptures of the Indian tradition, the Nalanda tradition. It's a 6-year, quite intense program. And for the first year, it's also a residential program. So we had a class of like 5 days a week. So for the first year, I was asked by the organizers of the program to lead a Lamrim meditation once a week for the other students. So every week, Friday morning, I would lead a Lamrim meditation. So we managed to go through the whole Lamrim, most of the main topics within the first year. And one of my classmates, a young Italian nun, was just so happy about these meditations. She thought, these are great, these are fantastic. In fact, she was the one translating into Italian for those who didn't know English. And so she kept notes of those, and then she used them for her own practice. She also used them when leading meditations for others. And so some years ago, 5 or 6 years ago, she wrote to me and she said, please, can you please edit that material of the Lamrim meditations that you led and make it into a book for Italians, because there's nothing in Italian on how to meditate on the Lamrim. So I thought, okay, that sounds like a good thing to do. So I started working on it. And then it occurred to me, well, maybe it would be good for English-speaking people as well. So I wrote to Wisdom Publications and asked them if they would be interested in publishing the book, and they said yes. And then they started working. Let's have a contract and let's have a timeline and da 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 da. So then I'm like, oh, I really have to work on this. But that was helpful because then I really got it. I really worked on it and got it done. And so it's been a work in progress for the last, about 5 years up to the time when it was published. And I really enjoyed doing it. I really love working on it because I love the Lamrim. I find it so beneficial. And I've also gotten some good feedback from people who say, thank you so much for this book. It really helped them to know how to meditate on the Lamrim. And also in our centers, in FPMT centers, people are sometimes asked to lead a Lamrim meditation for others, and they don't know how to do that. So they can look at this book and learn how to do that. So that's how this book came about. And so I've got meditations, suggested ways of meditating on the Lamrim, because there isn't just one way to meditate on the Lamrim that everybody has to do exactly the same way. Each person can find their own way of meditating on each topic, like preciousness of the human life. So I'm just offering suggested ways of doing it, but I'm saying, you can play around with that and make changes to it according to what works for you. That's just to give people some idea. And so I managed to cover most of the topics, the main topics of the Lamrim, and there's also some appendices with some maybe more advanced topics that aren't always available in the Lamrim. And there's also a section right at the back that's called Using the Lamrim to Work with Problems. So, people might sometimes think, the Lamrim is just really high stuff, and it doesn't have a whole lot to do with our everyday life and our everyday problems. But I don't think that's the case. Like, I myself found it very, very helpful to use material from the Lamrim to deal with problems that I've gone through. So just to give you a few ideas from that section. So within the book, the very first meditation is meditation on the breath, which isn't normally part of the Lamrim. You don't find this in traditional Lamrim books, but many Western people find it very helpful because, we have really busy minds and busy lives, and we need to learn how to slow down and quiet our mind. Meditation on the breath is a very helpful method for doing that. And and it's a good place to start in your practice of meditation. So I have a section on that. And then, and that practice is very helpful for dealing with problems in our life, because, if a problem is happening and we might get caught up in emotions and our mind starts spinning, and that's not necessarily very helpful. You're trying to solve the problem. So if you can sit down and watch your breath for a little while, that can help you to calm down. And if you're physically calm down, mentally calm down, then you can think more clearly and come up with solutions to your problems. And also, it helps us to develop mindfulness, and there's been a lot of research showing that mindfulness meditation, like meditation on the breath, is helpful for health and all kinds of problems, sleeping disorders, depression, pain. So it's like a multi useful practice for many different problems we might experience. And I've also included a meditation on the nature of mind, which isn't also normally included in Lamrim books, although our teachers, Lama Yeshe and Lama Zopa Rinpoche, would often teach us that, just so we understand what is the mind. what is the nature of our mind, of our consciousness, and all the thoughts and emotions that we experience all the time. So just to understand that these are impermanent, they're not permanent, they come and they go like clouds in the sky. They have this analogy in the Buddhist teachings that our mind is like the sky, and thoughts and emotions are like clouds that come and go. And that's so helpful, that analogy, so that we don't take our thoughts and our emotions so seriously and see them as permanent and who I am and so on, but to understand that they come and go. They're not permanent. They're not who we are. So that can give us more space in our mind to be able to work with them. And then, yeah, the precious human life, as I mentioned already, that can be really helpful to see the value of our life, potential, our abilities to do positive things for ourselves and for others. So that's a good antidote to depression or despair, hopelessness that people can sometimes fall into. I think nowadays there's a lot of that. I've heard young people especially looking at all the problems in the world and climate change and corruption and injustice and so on, that they can sometimes feel really, kind of despair about the world. And that's not a healthy state to be in, not a helpful state to be in. So to realize that in spite of what's going on in the world, we can still do a lot of good. There's a lot of positive things we can do. And in fact, I think that there are, I don't know, this is an idea I have, and I don't know if there's any proof for it, but I think there's more good things going on in the world than there are bad things. And they just don't get covered in the news. You know, the news always focuses on the negative things, the wars and the violence and the corruption and the injustice. And yeah, but there's so much good happening every single day. It's just ordinary. It's just the norm. And that's why it's not covered in the news. But, you know, within families, people are taking care of each other. Parents are taking care of their children when they're small. And then when the children grow up and the parents get old, they need help. So the children take care of parents. There's just a lot of people caring for each other within their families, and also neighbors taking care of each other, strangers taking care of each other. There's just a lot of caring behavior among human beings, and also human beings taking care of animals, you know, and then of course all the doctors and nurses and therapists and social workers, humanitarian work that's going on, people feeding those who are hungry, offering shelter to those who are homeless. So there's a lot of good that's happening on a daily basis, you know, millions of times every day. But you don't read about that in the news. The news doesn't talk about those things unless, I mean, you can look for it. If you look for it, you find it. For example, there's one organization I have great admiration for called the World Central Kitchen. Have you heard of that? Nobody? Yeah? I heard about it some years ago. It was started by a Spanish chef named Jose Andres, who he's like world famous. He worked in New York, Washington, this fantastic chef. And some years ago, I don't know exactly when, but he just felt people need food. I mean, it's obvious, but you know, when there's a disaster, natural disasters, there's wars, there's these things happening, people need to be fed. They need food and water. And he started this organization, and it's just amazing the work they do. I got a newsletter from them the other day, and it's just going through all the work they're doing in Gaza, in Alaska, where they just had this typhoon, and I can't remember all the different places, but as soon as there's some kind of disaster, people need food, they go in there and they set up kitchens and they make hot meals. They get local people to help out, and they must have donors all over the world to be able to pay for all this stuff, but they do it. They feed people, they provide food and water and comfort. I mean, that's comforting. So that's just one example, but there's so many other organizations, Doctors Without Borders, Red Cross. I mean, they're just people who are just totally dedicated to helping other people. And of course, there's a lot of suffering, and it's difficult to eliminate all of it. But there are people who are trying, who are dedicated to doing that. So I'm just saying this because it's easy if you only look at the news, the normal news, it's easy to get a very bleak picture of what is happening in the world. So it's really important to look for this other news and support them in whatever way you can, and spread the word so others support them as well. And rejoice in their efforts. There's a lot of good that's going on. So how did I get off on that? Anyway, I was talking about the precious human life. So, I mean, when I was a teenager, I was pretty negative. I didn't have a good view of the world, and I was even angry at the whole world. All I could see was the bad things. So I really thank the Buddha, my teachers, the Dharma, helping me to see things in a different way. It's really given me a lot of happiness and joy and energy and optimism in my life. So I can really say it kind of saved my life. And I hear that from a lot of other people as well, that the Dharma has saved their life. So it's definitely very practical. There's a lot of material in the Lamrim and in the Buddhist teachings in general that can help us with our daily problems. So I think I'll stop there. And if you have any questions you'd like to ask, I'll do my best to answer them. Or also anyone online who'd like to ask a question? Someone online?
Yeah.
Samia. I think Samia.
Uh-huh.
Yes. Hello, Venerable.
Hello.
Do you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. I'm really happy for this lecture, and I have two specific questions. But before that, I have to tell you a little bit, very shortly, the background. I come from Zen practice, Dogen, Japanese Zen. The last 4 decades I practice in the Zen tradition. And recently, 1 year ago, I discovered the Lamrim through your book called Meditation. And then I tried on my own with many difficulties, because in a Zen practice, in a meditation practice, we are sitting with just here and now, especially shikantaza, and it's very complex and difficult for me practicing Lamrim, because I don't exactly know what to do when I'm sitting on my pillow. I'm not used to use my intellect. I'm just sitting with the breath, with the presence, with the here and now. And now I try to follow your recommendations on your beautiful book that you presented tonight. But could you please tell me practically, how can I conduct a Lamrim session on my own? I don't have any teacher. And I'm following you on YouTube with the short Lamrim, Tsongkhapa, the short Lamrim.
Middling Lamrim.
Yeah, exactly. And and I feel a lot of joy, a lot of strength. Of course, from Zen I have the focus, but I feel very, very alone with this Lamrim. And my friends from Soto Zen, they are not interested. But I feel very open from Lamrim and His Holiness Dalai Lama, of course, but also you teaching. So I'm very happy to share this with you. I got some help from the teaching from Lama Sopa. There is several books, 5 books, explaining the Lamrim from Tsongkhapa, because it's difficult for me by myself. I'm just a simple student, a beginner. So I try to do my best, but yeah. I think maybe you have an idea of what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
I think I understand what you're saying. I also had the same kind of problem when I first started to learn Buddhism in Dharamsala at the Tibetan library. I would go to the class, and the teacher was teaching Lamrim, and he would talk and talk and talk, and it all sounded really wonderful. And at the end of the class, he would say, "Now go home and meditate on this." And I would go back to my room and try to sit, and I had no idea how to meditate. My mind was just all over the place, all over the world. So it was only when I went to Kopan Monastery and attended a meditation course, and there were students who were like more senior students. They had already learned about Lamrim, and they would be sitting up in the front and guiding the meditation. So we'd be sitting there, the students would be sitting there, and the leader would be in the front, guiding us step by step. Now think about this, now think about that. And they would guide us in a gradual way through the topics. So only then I felt like I got some idea. My mind was still very out of control, but at least I got some idea of what to do, how to do a Lamrim meditation. And so I went to 4 of those courses in a row, and I also attended a few group retreats where we would meditate on the Lamrim. And it was only after that, after quite a few years, that I was able to meditate on my own. So I think it is quite difficult on your own, even with a book, to learn how to do Lamrim meditation. So where do you live?
In Stockholm, Sweden.
Oh, Stockholm.
There's a center.
There's a center, yeah.
Yes, there is a center. There is a center, but they are not teaching the Lamrim. There is no Lamrim courses right now. So
Right.
I asked, but I just want to focus on the Lamrim because it's it's the main stuff for me. I think
it is. Yeah,
important.
it's really good. So another alternative is there's also a book by Venerable Thupten Chodron on guided Lamrim meditations. It was published many years ago by Shambhala. And she also made recordings of the meditations that you can download from the Shambhala website. If I get your email address, I can send you the link for that. But it's also in the book. So if you buy a copy of that book, then you can get the link. So that's another helpful way, because then you have a recording, you have a voice that's telling you, now do this, now do that, and so on. And so that's another option, to start learning how to do those meditations. So do you have his email address? Yeah, so I can, yeah, I'll get your email address and I'll send you the information for that. And I guess another way would be to go to Kopan Monastery and attend a meditation course. Are there other places in Europe that have meditation courses?
Like retreats.
Lamrim retreats.
In France, but that's in French.
Yeah.
That are, I mean, I think the website tries to keep up with these retreats because of people having an interest internationally.
Yeah. But I certainly sympathize with what you're saying. It's certainly my experience, and I think many people's experience as well, that it is difficult to learn how to do Lamrim meditation just on your own, reading a book. Some people might be able to do it, but not everyone. And especially if you have this experience of Zen meditation where you're taught to sit there and not think about anything. So that Lamrim is completely different from that. I mean, it's good to do both. Also, for us in Lamrim, we also need to sometimes sit and just focus our mind like on the breath or some other object to develop our concentration. So we need that kind of meditation at sometimes, but also the more contemplative meditation of the Lamrim. So it's said that ideally we learn both types of meditation and we can alternate them.
Yeah.
Is that helpful?
Thank you so much. I just want to add that I don't know why, but I feel deeply connected with you, and I don't know why. We never met, and we will probably never meet. But I'm following you on YouTube and from the monastery and all your talks, and I really feel deeply, deeply, deeply touched by your generosity and your presence. Thank you so much, Venerable. Thank you.
Well, thank you, and I'm happy to meet you. I didn't realize you were following my class.
Yeah, I'm doing that. Yeah, thank you.
And I've been teaching a Lamrim text called the Middle Length Lamrim of Lama Tsongkhapa. It's not the great one, it's the middle one. It's a little shorter, but it's been wonderful. I love going through that, teaching it. I've been doing that since about 2 years. 2 years now. We're not finished yet. So happy you're doing that class.
Thank you.
Thank you for your question. Any other questions? I see Maya. Maya, hello. Nice to see you. Old friend from Maitreya.
Marjolein based for her.
Oh,
Marjolein.
Okay. Hello. Please.
Well, thank you so much for this teaching. It's very helpful to have an overview like this. It's very inspiring. My question is, can you explain the difference between contemplating and meditating? For me, it's a little bit confusing to see the difference.
Well, I mean, sometimes I use the term contemplation, but I don't know if there really is a Tibetan term that we translate as contemplation. But I think I use the word contemplation because when you use the term meditation, for many people, meditation means just focusing single-pointedly and not thinking about anything, as we just heard. Yeah, just keeping your mind focused on the breath or whatever and not thinking. And so we do in our, like in the Lamrim, we have this kind of meditation where we contemplate, we think about, we use thought. So I use the term contemplation for that kind of meditation because it is more contemplative, more thinking, thinking, analyzing, rather than stopping all thoughts and just focusing on the breath or on something else. So, but traditionally in Tibetan, I don't know if they would have a separate word for contemplation. But they do say that when it comes to learning the Lamrim, there are 3 steps. The first is listening or learning, and that's like gaining the knowledge from teachers, from books, and so on. So just getting the initial understanding. And then the second step is sometimes called thinking or reflecting or contemplating. And that means thinking about what we've learned so that we understand it better. Not just leaving it on a superficial level, but what does that really mean? So thinking about it. The third step is meditation. So once you've really understood the topic, then you need to meditate with as much concentration as you can. So maybe the term contemplation could be used for the second step, where you're thinking about that. And one of my teachers once said that, that's meditation, like Lamrim meditation, doesn't have to be on a cushion in a very formal way. It can also be like walking around or sitting in nature and just contemplating, thinking about like the preciousness of the human life. So we can also think about or contemplate these ideas outside of a formal meditation session. And we're still getting more familiar with them and gaining more knowledge of them. So maybe that's an answer to that question. I think there was one other, somebody else.
Yeah, Mika. She lowered her hand.
Oh,
would you still like to ask a question?
Okay.
Yeah, I have a question.
Yes.
Yeah. When you do analytical meditation, is that always Lamrim meditation? Is it kind of the same?
Well, the term analytical meditation, it is used when talking about the Lamrim. So are you asking, can you do analytical meditation about other things rather than the Lamrim?
Or do you?
Oh, do I personally? I mean, like for example, when let's say I have a problem, I'm not feeling good in myself, or I'm having difficulty in a relationship with somebody. So it can be useful to sit down and do some analysis, like what is going on here, look into my mind, trying to understand what's going on in my mind, what kind of thoughts, what kind of emotions. So in a way, like problem solving. So I think, you could do analytical meditation. I think you could call that analytical meditation in a very loose way. Yeah. Yes.
Thanks a lot for the teaching. How do you, I'm quite new to the practice, so I'm curious to hear about how do you recommend using the book, such as, for instance, would you just really take your time to read it and every day read a page and then take 20 minutes?
Yeah.
I don't know, so to contemplate it?
Yeah. I mean, I do say in the book that the Lamrim, the intended audience of the Lamrim, is not really brand new beginners. It kind of the traditional Lamrim kind of assumes you already have certain knowledge about the Buddhist path, and also that I think it's really written for people who have already learned about the path to enlightenment and already decided this is what I want to do. So the book, the Lamrim is telling you, okay, this is what you need to do if you want to get enlightened. That's not really what's recommended for beginners. There are other books that are more suitable for people who are just kind of starting out and learning about Buddhism and trying to figure out if this is what they want to do or not. I mean, you're welcome to try it. You know, it won't hurt, but there might be other books that are more suitable. And in fact, I do have in the back, I have a recommended reading list of, you know, books that are more basic and the place to start. So introductory books. Number 1 is Open Heart, Clear Mind by Thupten Chödrön. That's a wonderful book. I don't know if you have it here, but yeah, now you can get anything online. Open Heart, Clear Mind. And yeah, so that's really good. So there's some other books on here that are, including mine, How to Meditate. That's a more basic book. Just how to meditate. So it's also by me, and it's more basic, more introductory. So a lot of people start with that book, and then I think this will be useful to use after that. But yeah.
Maybe it might be good to add that actually Annelies is teaching Discovering Buddhism here in the center. You might be aware of that. Which, of course, it's a longer term program, but it's a touch on many
more basics
as well.
Yeah.
And also for Buddhism in a Nutshell, which is really like a very short introductory. We will start in January. Also, then myself will guide that from January on. There's only five afternoons, but to get you started a little bit. Within a group setting also might be good to meet other people as well.
Yeah, because if you walk into a course that's sort of more advanced level and you feel like you don't understand what's going on and people are using all these terms and talking about these things you don't understand, it can be a little off-putting. So so it can be, might be more useful to start at a more basic level.
Actually, Lisette is giving a suggestion in the chat, the Lamrim Year, which is a book.
I would not recommend that one. I'm sorry, but it's just like the first 60 pages are about teaching teacher. So if you're brand new and you don't have the spiritual teacher, then that can be hard to relate to. So, I think I like Open Heart, Clear Mind. That's a really nice book. And also, it's the first part of the book is about how to work with different emotions like anger and attachment and so on. So this is like, we all struggle with those. And a lot of people come to Buddhism because they want to learn how to work on their emotions and become more calm, have a calmer mind, a better mind. So that's the first part of the book, how to work with disturbing emotions. And the second part of the book is more like an overview of the Buddhist path, Buddhist teaching. So it's just kind of really clear and simple and the main points of the Buddhist teaching, the Buddhist path. Okay.
There's a question in the chat.
Yeah.
Michal is saying, I struggle with finding time for the practice. How can I do Lamrim practice daily? Yeah.
Well, Lama Yeshe used to say, even just 5 minutes is good. Yeah. And I think, we find 5 minutes to have a cup of coffee or to read the news, to read our newsletter, our emails and so on. So, if you can find 5 minutes to do other things, then you should be able to find 5 minutes to do meditation. And so I mean, of course, if you have time to do more, then that's better. But even just 5 minutes, so you could take a book and read a few paragraphs maybe, and just think about those paragraphs, and then try to continue thinking about them in your daily life. So you don't necessarily have to do a whole meditation in one go. You could take it in little chunks, bit by bit, even just one paragraph, and really think about that during your day. So I think everyone should be able to find that much time. And another thing people sometimes do is they have a book on their bedside table, and before going to bed, they'll read a little bit from a book. So that's also a way of just starting to get the ideas into your mind, making your mind more familiar with them. So it's like everyone has their own lifestyle and program and ability. And so we just have to work with those conditions and just try to find time, even just 5 minutes, as Lamrim said, to acquaint our minds more with the path. I hope that helps. Yes.
I would like to ask quick questions. A little ago, you made a remark about how there's 3 steps per topic. So we hear about it, we may contemplate on it, and we meditate on it. I understand hearing about it. I understand contemplating about it. But I'm a little confused meditating only after contemplating.
Yeah, that is a little tricky. And when I was putting together the book, I was looking at a book of one of my teachers, Kensur Jampa Tekchok, and he said, in fact, let me just check what he said. He said, when you're talking about those 3 steps, hearing, thinking, or contemplating, and meditating, he said in those 3 steps, meditation really refers to single-pointed meditation. It's like when you have achieved really good concentration and you're able to just keep your mind focused single-pointedly on the meditation topic. And so he said in that context, then analytical meditation really comes, it's number 2 on that list. So contemplation, the second point, really refers to doing analytical meditation. So we're sitting there and we're just thinking about precious human life or impermanence and death. So that's actually the second step. And then once we get really a strong experience of that topic, we really get a sense, I am really going to die and I really have to make sure I'm prepared for death, something like that. Then we're supposed to focus on that experience, keep our mind focused on that, and really deepen that experience, that insight, so that it becomes just part of our reality. And that's the third step. So the third step, in talking about those 3 steps, the third step really is single-pointed concentration. And analytical meditation is the second step. So that's one way of explaining it. You may not always find that explanation everywhere, but I found that helpful and clear, and I do repeat it in the book. But he did say, he does say analytical meditation is meditation. It's not that it isn't meditation, it is meditation. But when you're talking about those 3 steps and trying to define what they are and what's the difference between them, he said in those 3 steps, analytical meditation is actually step number 2, contemplation or thinking. That makes sense?
It helps.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Probably stop. I think we've gone over time. Is there any other questions before we stop? Okay. So I hope this has been helpful and feel some enthusiasm, some interest in meditation and Lamrim. I mean, it is something complex and takes time to really understand it. But in my experience, it's very valuable. And the more I learn the Lamrim, I never get tired of it. I never get bored with it. I love it. And I love thinking about it, meditating on it, learning about it, talking about it. It's just really, really rich. And so I just find as time goes on, my understanding of it gets deeper and the benefits also increase. So in my experience, it's very, very precious and valuable. So let's finish with dedication. We'll just do this mentally, dedicating the positive energy or merit that we've created by coming together tonight and listening to this talk. So we started off with a good motivation, an altruistic motivation, wanting to benefit others and doing good for ourselves, for others, for the world. So we started off with a good motivation, and then we spent this time together, looking at the Lamrim. So this has been a good thing to do. We've created merit, good energy. And that's the cause of happiness and spiritual growth. So let's share that with others so that it becomes the cause for all living beings everywhere to have access to spiritual teachers and teachings that will help them to understand their minds, understand what is the cause of suffering so they can overcome that, become free of that. And what is the cause of happiness so they can increase that and have more happiness. And so that they will all go in the direction of awakening, a state of complete peace and happiness, free of all suffering and the causes of suffering. Okay, so thank you for coming. Thank you for your questions. Thank you to all of you online.
Thank you, Venerable Khadro.
Thank you very much. It's just a token of appreciation for your inspiring talk, which I think set us all thinking about now we should actually start to do it. Let's get the let's get the book. Let's start to actually do the practice, watch other videos on YouTube and find other resources to actually get this Lamrim going, because I do think that for many of us that is a challenge. And let's say this evening is kind of a kick in the actually start. So thank you so much for being here with us. I have a small present for you to plant in the garden of Sravasti Abbey. I hope you have some space in these bulbs there.
Bulbs?
Yes.
We do have tulips already.
Maybe not white ones.
The deer eat them.
Nice offering.
And it's deer. They just love tulips. Our gardener says that they're like deer candy.
Yeah.
Deer candy.
Then maybe you may want to share them with the deer. If some of them start to flower in spring, then maybe you can remember the Netherlands, remember Amsterdam, and feel reminded that maybe
they will still be good. Well, I'm going back again. So
they have an export sticker, so they're like checked to be able to take them to the US.
Yeah,
and if you plant them before winter, then they should flower in spring.
Wonderful, wonderful. Our gardener will be very happy.
The deer will enjoy. And so for those of you who are maybe not aware, Venerable Khadro is actually guiding a weekend on the Lamrim this coming weekend in our retreat center in Luna. So I guess we will get to practice some more during that weekend. I hope so. So everyone is welcome to come there as well. And of course, we hope next year or sometime later we will have planted not bulbs but seeds for you to come back to the center.
Thank you.